Hello, hello, my friends in Sasquatch Land. Hello, 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 my friends in Sasquatch Land. Tuesday night yet again, and Discover Sasquatch is back in the studio. And do we have another great show for you tonight? Miss Barb Shupe is in the house and backstage at the moment. Very excited to have her here tonight. I just wanted to run down a little bit about Barb before we continue on here. Barb lives in the Cascade Mountains north of Mount Rainier. On November 1st, 2012, while out hiking with her dog, Gabby, on the mountain behind their cabin, she heard strange talking, whistles, and a grunt, and then watched a herd of elk run by, followed by a Sasquatch. Suddenly, snap of the fingers, 20 years worth of strange experience began to make sense to her. Wanting to learn more, she reached out to these forest neighbors, and through respect and trust, a relationship of sorts was created that still continues to this day. She has also brought together a wonderful group of experiencers and researchers, the B&G Group. They camp together several times a year and focus on having respectful interactions. I look very forward to the conversation ahead tonight. We share a lot of the same similarities with each other on our investigations, along with the gifting and the trading and all of that. And we're very, very excited to have her here. So hello to everybody in the chat tonight. Without further ado, let's bring out Barb Shupe. Hello, 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 our new friend at Discover Sasquatch.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I guess it's not tonight there yet, right? So we're still a little bit, we're midnight, or I mean, early evening. How's that?
Late afternoon here.
Okay, late afternoon.
Yeah.
So, why don't you give everybody just a little bit of rundown about yourself and what snapped you into the Sasquatch fever?
Well, like you said, I live here in the Cascades. I'm north of Mount Rainier. I grew up here in Washington, and when I was a kid, my folks took us camping up at Mount St. Helens before it blew up, and that's where I learned about Ape Canyon. That was when I was first exposed to the whole Sasquatch phenomenon, and I was pretty much hooked right from then. And like many of us, I'm sure, I grew up looking for every single TV episode that included a Sasquatch, or any book I could find, any tidbit of information. And then I was just blessed enough to wind up living in a place where they're right here. So very lucky.
Right. You're smack dab in the middle of Sasquatch country. You are right there where it all goes down all the time. Do you think that these guys are throughout the United States, throughout the Northern Hemisphere, everywhere, or do you think they're just secluded to certain areas?
I think they're probably pretty much anywhere where there's still a wild patch of forest. Anywhere where you're going to find a water, any kind of water that's a stream flowing into a river flowing into a bay, anywhere where you're going to have a good water source and a forest right there. I think you're going to find them.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your first interaction with the Sasquatch, with the running elk when you seen it through the field. I'm a little curious on that. How'd that all come about?
Well, officially it started at the end of summer. I had been at my house up the road here, and I heard some screams that I recognized because I'd heard them on TV before. You know, the Ohio howl type type screams, howls. And I started asking my neighbors about it. You know, thinking, you know, this is a small town. If anybody's ever had any experiences, you know, that nobody talks about it, but I was curious, and I worked at the little store, and I was surprised to find that there were a lot of people that spoke up that did have experiences. And a couple of months went by, and I was up at our local coffee shop having coffee one morning, and there was a local fellow in there that he was a retired logger, timber faller, and he told me that he knew where the Sasquatches lived, that they came from up the creek here beside my cabin up on the mountain. There's a canyon up there, and he said that's where the Sasquatches lived. He knew this because back in the 70s, when they were logging up there, they'd show up at the job site in the morning, and a lot of the equipment, oil barrels and spools and things were thrown off the cliff down into that canyon. So I decided I had to go up there and check it out. I had been up there before, but it had been many, many years since I'd climbed all the way to the top. So I started out in the afternoon, and Gabby and I went up, and we got close to the top, and the trail opened up to a beautiful view. And there was a nice stump for sitting on right there. So we just figured take a little break. And I sat down, and that's when I started hearing this very strange gibberish type talking. I was still very new to this, and I had heard that they could talk, but honestly, I didn't believe it. To me, back then, they were still just another form of wildlife. And so I was just really confused by this talking I was hearing. It was very loud and animated, and it wasn't like any language I was familiar with. And of course, my mind is going straight to every horror movie with a mutant I'd ever seen. And you know, I'm thinking, well, it's hunting season. Maybe there's some hunters down there, maybe some German hunters. So I had knocking sticks in my backpack. I pulled those out, and I gave them a whack, and instantly it stopped. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at least somebody knows I'm up here now. They won't be shooting this way. And the right behind me where I was sitting, the brush was so thick you couldn't see more than a foot into it. And almost immediately after I put my sticks away, I heard this very loud grunt right behind me. And then I'm thinking, okay, bear, there must be a bear here. We'd better get moving. So we headed on up the trail. It wasn't maybe another 10 minutes to the top, and we got up there, and I was at the top of the canyon here where the creek comes from, and I got my sticks out, and I did some knocks, and I was so disappointed because I didn't get any kind of a Sasquatch type response. And I was up there for a little while and realized it was getting late and decided I'd better head back down. So we came back down, and you get to a lower section where you're back where the logging roads are. And the trail crosses where the road switches back, and it's just a real steep switchback, and in between the trail cuts between them. And it was really open through there. It had been selectively logged, so it was a good open view. And I'm halfway down that little stretch of trail, and I hear this very loud human-like whistle just right beside me, and there's nobody there. And it's immediately followed by another whistle at the bottom of the trail down by the lower stretch of road. And I can clearly see down there. There's nobody there either. And, well, I'm kind of thinking, well, elk can whistle. I've never heard them whistle like that before, but it must be the elk. And it just carried strangely. So we got on down to the lower section of road. And from that point, the trail is really rutted and steep. So we just stayed on the road. And Gabby was walking ahead of me, and there's a little bend, and she stopped and looked back, and I knew that there was something ahead of us around that bend. And I took a few more steps, and sure enough, there were elk standing in the road. Okay, that's cool. That's what it was. It was the elk. So we go down around the next switchback, and I look up on the hillside, and right there's the whole herd of elk is right there. And I said, okay, that's cool. There's the elk. So we take a few more steps, and here comes the elk down off the hill behind me, across the road, and they're going this way through the forest off to my left. And that's when I focused in on him. He was maybe 100 feet out. And my first thought was, gorilla? We don't have gorillas. Oh, it's Sasquatch. And for the first instant that I saw him, he was facing me. But then he just turned and he followed right in the direction the elk had gone. And he never looked in my direction again. He seemed to be focused completely straight ahead. And I could clearly see him above the last leaves of a vine maple bush from about shoulders up. He was wide open. I could see long, wavy black hair, almost blue. It was shiny. It was beautiful. It was very similar to Gabby's hair, if you ever saw her. Pasty pale skin on the face. There was no hair on the face, just around it. Massive jaw, a very heavy brow ridge with very sunken dark eyes. And above the ridge, there were two bony ridges that went up on the side, and it was like caved in the middle. So because there's no forehead there, so it just sunk back. And when he turned his head, you could see how those bony ridges just went up into this huge cone. And my first thought was, should I be afraid? And then that was instantly out of my head, because, they've had 30 years to get me up here and they haven't done it yet. And he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the elk. So, and then he took one more step, and I was thinking, okay, he's going to be out from behind that vine maple and I'll be able to have a full body clear view of him. And he took that one more step, and just, it was like he stepped behind an invisible curtain. He just wasn't there anymore. And I stood there and I stared at that spot for a good 5 or 10 minutes, just trying to figure out what had happened. Here I just saw Sasquatch, but at that point, I had never even heard of cloaking. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know that was even something that could happen. And I took my eyes away from that spot, and I looked down at Gabby, and she's staring right where I was. She hadn't made a move the entire sound the entire time. And I was just stumped. And it was getting late. We still needed to get back to the cabin, so we continued our hike down. And after that, I went back up probably 5 or 6 times over the next couple of weeks. And I looked at that spot from every angle, and just trying to rationalize what had happened. I finally decided that this, individual who was close to 12 feet tall probably just must have had to drop to the ground faster than my eyes could perceive, and just crawled away behind a higher rise of ground. And that's how I rationalized it into something that I could finally accept and talk about, because how do you tell people you saw a Sasquatch and then it just vanished into thin air, So that's how that went.
So before we go any further, for those who don't know Gabby, what Gabby was, or she was your partner for all these years, and I'm very sorry for your loss with Gabby. It's very sad, and and then you want to explain to everybody who Gabby, you've had 3 pups. You still have the Jack is still.
Yeah, we still have Jack. Okay. He's getting to be an old man now. He's out hanging out with his dad tonight. And then we have Goldie here, who she was just a little blessing from heaven. After Gabby passed away, we had a memorial for her here in the yard, and for the group, we had it decorated the whole yard with the fall colors. We had bouquets of colorful leaves all over the yard, and the Sasquatch joined in by decorating the signs on the bridge over the creek right here. They put their own leaves on there, and so.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Those signs were bent back for them to put those leaves in there, because those were held in by I'm sure threaded toggle bolts. They were just drilled into those posts. The only way to put those leaves in is they had to pry them apart and put them in.
Yeah, one of them is the sheet metal is actually pinched around the stem of the leaf. That stem is still in there.
It was a tribute. I'm sure they miss her too. And again, my apology. I just they've become part of the family, and I think
they do.
We would approach that early, and we'll get that away, because I'm getting a little sad myself. So
well, you want to hear about how I got Goldie?
Yes. Please tell everybody the story, because I know it, and it's a wonderful story.
Well, after Gabby passed, we have her grave here, and I came out every night and I burned some sage and I said some prayers, and I make a habit of thanking the nature spirits and the forest folk and whoever are out here that can hear me for the blessings that we've received with all of this and just this wonderful life. And I was so grateful for Gabby. And about About midwinter, it popped into my head that I should have a gold dog. You know, how many dogs you gonna have in a lifetime? And I'm not really all that young anymore, and I've never had a gold dog. You know, I should probably have a gold dog. So this guy that I was working with down at the store, he lived back behind the store, and he had a pregnant dog at the time, and he was telling me I could have one of his puppies. And I told him, well, you know, I kind of had my heart set on a gold dog, and I kind of wanted, you know, maybe like a collie shepherd mix of some sort. And he said, well, his dog was an Australian shepherd and border collie, and so that took care of my breed issue there. And but I still wasn't really sure that that was going to be the dog for me. And then when the day came that those puppies were born, there were 11 of them, and they were all either black or black and gray with spots and some little bit of brown. But he said that when mom was done having her babies, he let her outside to go potty, and there was 5 feet of snow on the ground at that time. And he lived in a little cabin with a very heavy door that he just opened it up and let her back in. And he said, just as the door was almost closed, he heard this tiny little sound that got his attention. And he went out and looked, and here was a little gold puppy out in the snow that she had one more. We think she did, but nobody witnessed it. But there was Goldie out there. So yeah, she was my little miracle baby. And she's just been the greatest blessing. And, you know, the whole time those puppies were in the cabin, you know, before I got to bring her home, there were Sasquatch reports around the cabin where there were sightings. They had rocks thrown at their roof on a regular basis. And she's pretty special. She knows things. She's I mean, she's pretty smart as far as dogs go, but she just seems to know things. She's got another connection going on here.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you never know what could have happened outside that door, you know?
You know, you don't.
Came and laid the
Yeah.
pup in the snow. Nobody knows, but that's awesome. I'm very happy that you got her and she's with you, and there you guys are both happy. I'm very happy for both of you.
Yep, she's my little angel sent from heaven.
Yep. So after your first experience, what were you thinking? What were your thoughts on what just happened? How did when you were going to pursue these guys, or did it take a little while to think about it, or what happened after that encounter?
Well, you know, I was in shock for a few days. It took me a little time to, you know, adjust to it. And then, you know, once I rationalized how he disappeared, it made it easier to talk about, you know. So I told a few people what had happened, and I contacted the BFRO, and I made a report. And they came out, and I took them on a tour out here, showed them where everything had happened. And, you know, I just had this powerful feeling that, you know, this is way bigger than me. This is important stuff. And for me to just sit here and keep this information to myself just didn't feel right, you know. So I had a video camera, and I'd seen online other people were going out and finding stick structures and things like that. And I had never heard of stick structures before. But in years past, you know, there had been times when I'd found things out in the woods and thought to myself, you know, if we ever had a fire go through here, these are just piles of kindling all over the place, you know. But now I recognize these things as the structures that we go out and look for. It was let's see, it was probably 3 or 4 months went by before I discovered that there were local meetings that I could go to. And that's when I learned about gifting, and that peanut butter might be a good option. So I went up here. Well, I went out a few times in the night, and, you know, I just tried to record different things and stuff. But it wasn't until I really started gifting and reaching out to them that things really started happening, you know. I think I was on their radar for a long time, but they just had to wait for me to catch up. And the gifting was a way to, you know, build a relationship of sorts, you know. It's like it took a while for things to happen, but looking back at it at the time, I thought that I was creating a situation where they were getting used to me. But the reality of it was that gifting was creating a situation where I was getting used to them. And the lessons that they had for me were doled out slowly but surely. They give you what you need when you need it and the time you need to wrap your head around it so that you're ready for the next one. And yeah, so that's how that just kind of evolved. I took a pie out and a jar of peanut butter and some apples every week, and I hung them in a basket the way that they recommend you do to keep the wildlife out of your food when you're hiking. And it every week those things were gone. And just a little side story. Oh, yep, there's my little jar of peanut butter. That's the first one they took. You can't tell from that picture, but the jar is actually squeezed flat at the other end. And that's how they got the lid off of the first one, was they popped it off. And you can kind of tell in the lid there's a little bit of peanut butter in there. And then they had used sticks to dig it out. And so after that, I was feeling a little bit bad about 3 years worth of peanut butter jars collecting in the woods. And, a lot of them I brought out, but a lot of them were just gone. I never found. So one day I was just joking around going up the trail, and I hollered out, it sure would be nice to get some of these peanut butter jars back. And the next day I finished what chores I was doing here, and I was just walking across the road to the trailhead, and I was going to go up for a hike. And it popped into my head 3 times that this vision of a place downriver where I'd go in and look for rocks. It was just a very clear image. And I had heard about this. So I thought, you know what, let's go with it. So instead of going up the trail, I went on down the road, and I went out on the river to this spot where I used to go collect rocks. And I got there, and well, the trail ends there, and the river's too high to go in. And it's like, well, what am I doing here? I was a little annoyed, and I thought, well, this is just silly. And I turned, and I was just going to bushwhack straight through the forest back into the area I was originally going to go. And I hadn't gone maybe 10 feet, and I looked over, and there's a tree about so big around that had been pushed so that the root wad was sticking up. So there's like the tree and the root wad like this. And right in that little notch is an empty peanut butter jar. So they gave me back a peanut butter jar after I asked them to. And oh, yep, there we go. That's the picture right there.
Now, I find that very interesting because I did apples and peanut butter at my area, and the first 2 peanut butter jars were ripped in half, like twisted.
Oh, wow.
And then the next time,
cool.
So the third time I went up there, I held the jar up and I showed them how to take the cap off. 6 years after that, I never found another peanut butter jar. Ever.
They never brought them back?
They never brought them back. They took them. They took I think they gathered everything from our area, but that's just the same thing happened with you. They've opened it in a certain way, but then learned how to. But they're extremely.
I think it just probably popped off from pressure from squeezing the jar.
Yeah,
and after that, I if I recall, I think I left the next jar slightly unscrewed, but it still had like the inner seal in it. So nothing else was going to get into it. But I think after that, that's when they figured out they could just unscrew the lid.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff. I mean, it's not coincidence any longer. I mean,
no, it's not.
And you're in the middle. My area was in the middle of the woods. It wasn't in the back of my house. It wasn't, it was out. It took us 45 minutes to an hour to get there, just like you. I mean, yours is out in the middle of the wilderness, and there's nothing out there with hands that is taking peanut butter jars.
Nope. Nope.
I find that very, very fantasy. I just got tongue-tied. I don't even know the word I was looking for. Fascinating. There you go. Ding, ding, ding. You win the prize. You win the prize. Thank you. I need as much help as I can get. So, you're gifting now. You're trading with them. Do you still think they're all flesh and blood, or do you think there's something else going on?
Well, I am sure they are flesh and blood, but they are more than that. There's definitely more going on. They have abilities that science can't just can't explain at the moment. There's a lot of people think of the woo as, pixie dust and unicorns, and it's just not like that. There are things that are happening that are really awesome that we really can't explain in any way. But I don't think that it's a matter of, it's magic. I mean, we can call it that, but it's just stuff that we can't quite explain yet. It's just science that's yet to be explained. So they do have amazing things that they can do.
Yeah, we're calling it high strangeness. We're getting rid of the woo because the woo sounds like you're a wrestler. So that's what
I like
we're
high
referring to it now.
strangeness. That's good.
I mean, it gets strange. It does year after year. The more you are around these guys and the more you've seen what's going on, it gets stranger and stranger.
It
And
really does.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're opening up to their world. You imagine they live in this world, and just like you said at the beginning, it's like they give you bits and pieces what you can handle at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Year after year, they give you more and more and more, and then they're just you get to that point and they're like, "Whoa, what is going?"
Yeah.
No,
And the more open you are to it, the more you're going to experience it. I mean, you can keep doing this, but if you keep that block up, if you don't want to, if your brain can't go there, they're not, it's not going to happen. That I don't think they want you to be scared, and they don't want you to be freaked out. I think they look for people who can accept the things that they can do and can, not run away screaming, and not think that they've lost their minds, because, a lot of this stuff is really weird.
really weird.
Yeah.
You shared some clips with me that I think you shared your cloak clip, which is amazing. I want to start off with the hand clip. You want to give a little background on that story, because you guys are right there, or two of you. I don't know who's by the tree there, and that the Sasquatch is right behind the tree in front of them.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
it was up the tree originally. So there's a really cool backstory on that. This is when we were in the Blues. I think it was 2018 or 2019. We had one of our campers had just gone for a drive, and she just got out of ways. She's in a new place and didn't want to go too far, so she decided she was going to turn around and head back to camp. So at the intersection where she was turning around, as she's backing up to make the turn, right across the road from her in a tree, there's a little Sasquatch climbing the tree, and she can see him. She described it as climbing the limbs like it's a ladder. So she came back and told us all, and we went and explored that spot. I found the track marks in the grass. That was when Goldie was just a puppy. She got to sniff her first real Sasquatch tracks there doing that. And it was pretty cool. I mean, they were just little tracks. And while we were there, we found firewood. So we went back again to collect the wood. And while we were loading that up, we were just back in the woods a little ways farther. And a Sasquatch jumped out of the tree right there beside us where we were getting the wood, just a little one. And there were several of us that witnessed it. Not everybody saw everything. It was pretty fast. But so then we went back the next day to document that. And while we were documenting the Sasquatch jumping out of the tree, another Sasquatch jumps out of the same tree. And that's how the hand got captured. As he was on the back side, when he came down, I think the hand goes down and back up. And that's what we saw.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
yeah, you can see it's Rob standing there on one side, and he heard something that caught his attention, and he looked, and then he looks back, and it's just a few seconds later that he jumps.
Now, if that was a bear, you would know it's a bear. A bear's not going to climb down and make no noise.
That is correct. Yeah. And
before we show the club, how close is that tree to? Is that Tom? Is that his Tom? That's
Rob.
Rob.
10 feet.
10 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll play the clip now, and then we'll play the close up afterwards. But this is 10 feet from them, and I think it's pretty amazing.
They say they're slender when they're young.
4 feet?
4 foot.
That's about the same that Kelly described.
Now, if y'all didn't see it, look for the man with the hat on, and look at the tree that's to his right hand side. You will see the arm come down, and then I'll play the close up after.
They say they're slender when they're young.
4 feet?
4 foot.
That's about the same that Kelly described.
Here we go. Here's the close up.
Isn't that cool?
That's so cool.
And we did have one more sighting there at that location also. On the last night of that camp out, my friend Kathy and I had gone back down to that area, and we were just standing out on the main road looking back to where that happened, which would be maybe a couple hundred yards. And we could see, she's the one that saw it first, right back there in those trees. There was a large black shape that was rocking back and forth in the trees. And she pointed it out, and I got to see it just before it stopped and disappeared. So
Now, you've had a lot of interactions with juveniles. Is there a reason? Do you think there's a reason for that?
You know, I think that they bring them around people like us so that they can learn about us, you know, so they can see how we move, how we function, you know, listen to us, learn our voices. I get mimicked a lot. Yeah, so places like right here where I live, you know, that's forest behind me that goes all the way to till there's no more forest up north. You know, it goes up into Canada and up to the Arctic Circle. There's no break in this forest. And so when they come to a place like this, they're right on the edge of a little tiny stretch of civilization where people have been here for decades, and we're all very safe and familiar. And, you know, they can just come as close as they want, and they can hang out with us and observe and learn and have a very easy escape route into anywhere they want to go. So, you know, I think, you know, I'm not a mother. I don't have any children, but maybe they see me as one, you know, somebody who is being female, that I'm just somebody that is safe to come and observe. So.
Well, you talked a little bit about structures, and before we move on past the structures and before it becomes an afterthought, sticks in the ground. Now, I always thought the sticks in the ground was, and there's many people who argue, oh no, they fall from the trees and they stick 6 inches in the ground and they weigh half a pound. I have always paid attention to the sticks in the ground. What do you think? You think they're a marker of some sort? Why do you think they do it, or is it just a hobby?
Okay, so I got a couple of different things on this to tell you about. I think when you find the big sticks, you know, you're just walking along out in the woods and you find a big stick stuck in the ground. It's entirely possible, you know, that did fall out of a tree like that. But like you said, a lot of times they don't weigh hardly anything. They'll have a blunt end. And if you notice, a lot of them are missing bark around them. And I believe, this is just my theory, that some of these bigger sticks, that's something that the little ones use to hold on to, as almost like a security blanket or a grounding, you know, because when they're learning how to cloak, they shake things, they vibrate. And when they hold on to one of those sticks, you know, if you ever try to push one of those sticks in the ground, it's not going to work. But if you just turn it a little bit with a little pressure on it, it will literally drive itself into the ground. So in my experience, Sasquatch like to shake things, the little ones, they vibrate things. So if they're holding onto a stick to give them, you know, that little something to hold on to while they're learning how to cloak, well, here comes the vibration. And what happens? Well, it leaves you a stick stuck in the ground. That's my theory on why the bigger sticks are like that, because we have found them out here before going up the trail and they're not there. And then you come back out and there's a whole line of sticks, and then you go back and they're all gone. Well, if they weren't of some kind of importance, they wouldn't come back and take them. You know, they just leave them there. So at some level, these sticks have some kind of value to them. You know, once you've seen them, you don't get to keep them. They are important to the Sasquatch in some way that they have to go back and collect them. And then there's like the little sticks. And for me personally, and for I don't know who else, I know at least a few of my friends, the little sticks have become what I think of as focus points for interaction. They pay attention to the little details that you pay attention to. You know, there are certain things in life that we all put our attention on, little details in life. And those are the things that they look for to interact with you, to see if you're paying attention. And these last few months, we've had a lot of just little sticks that have appeared here at the cabin, you know, in my flower bed and in my driveway. And I have friends who've also had little sticks that are appearing in places that you look at on a daily basis, somewhere that you're going to walk by, somewhere that, you know, that's going to be in your face. And that's something that they use to just get your attention is things that they have that are handy, which is little sticks. So then we did our camp out in May. I had a sighting just right there in camp. He was 30 feet in front of me. And the next morning I got to looking around and there's sticks stuck in the ground not far from my tent. And then we just wrapped up a camp out last week where the first night, right outside my tent, I was having activity again. And the next morning I went out and looked around, and sure enough, there it is. There's a stick stuck in the ground right there, just not far from my tent. So on one hand, I think that they use the bigger sticks, just a general use thing to help them as maybe like a security blanket or a grounding tool, just something to hold on to keep in their hand while they're learning to cloak. And I think that they use them as smaller sticks as a way to communicate and interact and have a point to focus on.
Yeah. I agree with you on the smaller sticks. I think they leave it for the next one. Like if they're in the area and they're observing something, well, this is as far as you can go without them seeing you. We've gotten this far, like little markers, like crawling up on their belly. We used to find areas, and we would find twigs. That's the area that I used to go to, twigs. And they would be halfway stuck in the ground. And he had a creek, and the creek bed was there, and then there was a little hill, and then they would put them right on top of the little hill, and we would find them there all the time. So they would. I agree with you. I never heard about the shaking, and that's definitely food for thought. So thank you for sharing that. I never even thought about that, but it makes sense.
Well, if you take a big blunt stick and just try to push it into the ground, it's not going to work. But if you just apply a little bit of weight to it and just turn it back and forth, within a few minutes, it'll drive itself into the ground. So that's it makes sense to me that if they're using them, and I've witnessed them shaking things on numerous occasions, and I believe, when you can see them and then they shake something and you can't see them, they're using that vibration to cloak. So it only makes sense that they're holding onto a stick. It vibrates, it drives into the ground. So
so let's move on to the cloaking thing.
Okay.
So everybody, a lot of people don't think they can do it. I'm starting to learn that there's more and more people that do believe that they know how to do it. I personally, now that I know what I know, I believe they can do it. And you have a video of one doing it. I mean, it's amazing. The close-up is amazing. I have to admit, I've never seen the close-up till you shared it with me. I only saw the other clip. It's kind of hard to see. But you look at that close-up, and then you're like, oh, my God, it's right there. You could see it moves through the leaves. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's it's unbelievable. So you want to give a little backstory on this, and we'll show that one next.
Okay, so that was 2014 in September. We had our second group camp out. It was a very small group. We were about 7-8 miles upriver where we had our main camp, and I had brought everybody down here to the cabin just to take them up the trail and just do a little tour of structures, just show them things in the woods that I had found out here. So we went up just not very far, maybe just a few hundred feet, and we separated at that point. My dad and his wife and another lady who had already seen what I was going to show them just went ahead and sat in the area that came to be known as the Field of Dreams. And I took the rest of the group off trail at that point just to show them where there was a strangely broken tree where both ends were kind of suspended on very delicate things, and yet it was cracked and snapped solid in the middle. This solid tree was broken. We were trying to figure out how that happened. And I had my camera on attached to my walking stick, and right in front of me, about 75, 80 feet, just right in front of me, I saw this little individual with like a domed head, no neck. He was very triangular, long black hair. He just popped up and took off running. And for a second, he was out of sight behind a tree, but he was just all arms and legs and hair, and he was mowing stuff over, and then he was just gone. We went back to camp that night, and I was hoping I had something on camera, but I didn't really know because the camera was on, but I wasn't, actively filming. I wasn't aiming it at anything. So I got back to camp, and I'm looking at it, and this is a camera on an iPod 4, so it's just a little screen, And I'm looking at that, and it's just this blur is there, and it's like, I don't know what that is. It's too small to really make it out. So we put it on a regular computer. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, this looks like the Predator. My iPod can't do Hollywood stuff. What is this? So we put it on my dad's big screen. He had his RV there, and that just, oh my gosh, that just blew me away. I just sat there and cried for a few minutes because, I wasn't anti-paranormal back then. I mean, I was totally into ghosts and things, but I had no idea there was a connection between the paranormal and Sasquatch. That was a huge step for me. And yeah, that's when I finally accepted that the one that I saw up on the hill that first time that was following the elk, that he hadn't just dropped to the ground faster than my eyes could perceive. It explained a lot of things. And yeah, that just blew me away.
All right, guys, I'm going to show you this clip. Now, the first clip is the original clip from far away. It's kind of tough to see. Which tree is it? And towards the middle tree, it's right to the left of the middle.
You'll
tree.
see the tree in front of me. There's like a little branch sticking out. Just kind of look over that little branch.
Okay, we'll show it a couple times, but once we show the close up, you'll be all set after that.
Have been,
Yeah.
like a thrust and not a hang, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? 'Cause
Something
if
hard
they'd
and
hung on
fast.
it for any amount of time,
The heck was
top
that?
part would've
Did you
came
see
down.
that?
Sam's been,
All right, we're going to show it again.
have been,
Yeah.
like a thrust and not a hang, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? 'Cause
Something
if they'd
hard
hung
and
on it
fast.
for any amount of time,
The heck was
top
that?
part would've
Did you
came
see
down.
that?
Sam's been.
All right, so I know you guys are all like, so I didn't see nothing. I couldn't see. It's there if you know where to look for it. I can't point at it with my cursor but now watch this.
Isn't that something?
He looks up. You can see him. He peeks up and then he goes back down.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more times.
Yep. Now see that horizontal log right behind him? I didn't see this part of it. What I saw was when he popped up behind that log and took off running. And there were actually more of them out there than just him that day. We found two sets of tracks that were relatively the same size. One from the individual that I saw, which I believe is the one that dropped down and went under the log. And then there was another one farther back that went back and looped around. And yeah, they were moving fast. And also when all that happened, my dad's wife, who had gone up the trail and was sitting on a log waiting for us, her little dog was sitting in her lap, and the little dog, looked in our direction and did a little bark, and she looked and didn't see anything. So when she looked back right across the trail from where she was, she described what she said looked like a little monkey came head first down the tree and took off into the bushes. So there were at least those three. And then about 20 minutes or so later, Sandy, who had gone deeper back into the woods to check her gifts when all this had happened, she came out and didn't know anything about that, and said that she heard a woman's voice up on the hill, and it sounded like it was calling her children. So that would make 4 that are in the area. And a couple of weeks later, I was out here with a thermal camera. I was coming down the road one night and I saw some eye shine just back in the woods back here. So I came in and I got the camera out, and I just stood right here in the road looking that direction. And I saw what looked like 2 triangles, and they don't have a neck. So when they're squatted down, they have a triangle shape to them, the outline. And then I saw the one little triangle came up between the 2 of them, and it's like, oh, there they are. The 2 that were there plus the baby. And then before I could get it to record, get the camera to turn on to take pictures, the baby just kind of scooted on out the other way and was back into the woods again. But yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you're capturing stuff that a lot of people don't capture. Is it just by it's just like you're in their area? I mean, that's the only way you're capturing them, and you're getting lucky. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're not seeing it, but well, you're obvious. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing it. You're seeing them there, but you're capturing them like angles that you wouldn't normally shoot. You know, like you said, you got the GoPros on the stick and you're facing that way. Well, you saw it run away. You didn't see him come up and peek over at you
Right.
guys.
No, no, I didn't see anything until when he was on the other side of that log, when he popped up and took off running. So the part of it's that the camera caught, I didn't see at all. There was nothing there. And then so there was, as far as I'm concerned, there was no movement or anything until he popped up on the far side. And I think the camera was on my walking stick, which was about a foot lower than my eyes. And I think that's why the camera didn't pick up what I saw. It was just a slightly different angle.
It's amazing footage in my book.
Thank you.
And I know that you this is real by your body language. I can tell by the way, when you're telling a story, you're looking over your shoulder, you're reaching for it. You're reliving it. And that's
reliving it. Yeah.
That's how I can tell someone is telling the truth. Body language. And you're telling.
Well, that's exactly what you do when these experiences, you literally relive them when you're telling them. That's what makes it easy about talking about Sasquatch to people, because your audience disappears, and in your mind's eye you're just reliving the experience again. So
that's why people,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why people have PTSD. That's why they cry. That's their emotions. That's the real deal. That's what really happens. I get goosebumps every time I talk about all my experiences, and thank you for sharing what you've shared so far. It's pretty amazing stuff. So,
oh, you're welcome.
I have noticed also, and I've just noticed this myself, as the years have gone along, did you always record when you first started? Was audio a big part, or was you just filming at first?
At first, I had an iPod, so I had enough experiences, and I realized that when these things are going to happen, they're just going to happen. So I started just carrying the camera on all the time, whether it was a vocal or something visual. You don't have time to pull the camera out, turn it on, go to the right app and get it aimed. I mean, you're going to miss what's happening while you're doing that. So I just figured out a way to attach it to my walking stick. And so it was always ready to go. But, we tried doing recording devices. Well, first we tried trail cams, and that didn't work at all. It was the first one we put out there, took one picture of Gabby, and then it malfunctioned and never worked again. So we got another one, a brand new one, put it out there. And I think it took 2 pictures of the elk. And then after that, every picture was a whiteout picture. And I was thinking, well, maybe the sun was shining on it. So I took it and I put it underneath a bridge where there would never be any sun on it. And it took more pictures, which were also just completely white out. And so we started using recording devices that we'd stash around the gifting area. And the first time you hear the individual walk up, pick it up, rattle it around, it gets turned off. The second time, you don't hear them walking up, it just gets picked up and turned off. And after that, they just turned them off. And either that or they would take them. And, about that same time, I was starting to learn a lot more about them not just being wildlife, that these are another kind of people, and we need to treat them with respect. And you can't just try to fool them. You can't try to trick them. You have to be respectful, because they know exactly what you're doing. And if you want them to interact with you, you got to have some respect that goes both ways. So at one point I had a sound recorder that I decided I wasn't going to put them out in the woods anymore. That's their place out there, their business. But this is my yard. So I thought, one night I'm hearing vocals and I can put a recorder in my yard. So I had a little picnic table right here, and I turned it on and I put it on the bench where it was completely out of sight from anywhere. And I left for about 3 hours, and I came back and it was gone. I found it about 6 feet away on the ground, turned off and covered in dried mud. And that was the last time that I ever put a recorder out. It's personally, to capture these things on recording devices isn't nearly as important as the relationship and the ongoing interactions. I don't want to upset them or disrespect them in any way that's going to offend them. You know, if they don't want me to record them, I won't record them. And, you know, we go out with cameras and we have recording devices at camp, but, you know, the rule is that if they turn it off, leave it off. You know, they let you have what they want you to have. You know, it's like that day that I got the little hand on camera. I wasn't actively trying to record a Sasquatch. I was just trying to record you know, document what had happened, tell the story. And they gave us what they wanted us to have. And it seems that's the way that it works. You know, once you get to the point where they trust you and that they know your intentions, they'll give you what they want you to share. And this works out pretty good.
Yeah. You have stuff that we're not even going to be able. We're going to have you come back again because we're not even touching the tip of the iceberg here tonight. But the reason I was but you were starting to pick up EVPs voices.
Oh yeah, got a few of those too.
That's what we're starting to do now too. Since we got introduced to the next stage, is what I'm calling it, the next tier. You know, they have tier, and now we're at that next tier, and now we're picking up EVPs. Never picked them up before, and I've always recorded. But now we're picking them up, and you guys are picking them up too on your cameras.
Yeah.
What do you think those voices are? Do you think it's them, or do you think it's something else?
Well, you know, honestly, I'm just speculating. But I think it's them. And if it's not them, then it's some other kind of, you know, nature spirit, you know, something else that lives out here that just wants to be heard every now and then, has something to say. The first good one that we got, we were up in British Columbia a few years ago, and I was just out walking around checking out structures in the woods, and we got a hi. A very deep voice says hi. We didn't hear it at the time, but it's very clear in the recording. So,
all right, did you give me that? I don't know.
I might have.
I think it gave. Let me. I don't know which ones are which. I think I only have this one recording here. I'll play this one real quick. That's pretty interesting. Where was that one?
That was over in the Blue Mountains last July. That was Tracy Bozen's recording off a parabolic mic. He had set up in the meadow, and that you can kind of hear voices that went in. That's me and him talking around the fire. There were howls going on around us in the forest, and we didn't hear anything at the time, but his recorder picked it up.
Yeah, it's like a vibrato. It's not even like a wolf howl. It's like a woo.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I think
Ohio howl type screams.
I think this is another recording.
Did you hear that? What was that?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
What was that?
It's kind of like he was mad that you didn't know. He was like,
I know. So my friend Donna and she was sitting right next to me. There were 5 of us, and only Donna and I heard it. And it was like just right behind us, right there. Come on, miss, relax here. Come on. Over you go. So it was just like right behind us where we were sitting, and there's just this deep. And I don't know if it was thought placement or what, but the first thing that went through my head was there's something wrong with my well pump. It's dragging and it doesn't sound right. And she was a little shocked, as she had a few expletives that she had to say when she heard that. But yeah, that started off a pretty amazing experience that whole week. And in the recording you just played, you can't actually hear it without headphones, but you can. And you can hear a knock and the sigh and then another knock. We didn't hear any of those at the time. Nobody heard those. That was just what was picked up. And another very strange thing about that recording is the 5 of us that were there have a very distinct memory of how it happened and what was said after that and the minutes following it. And when you listen to the recording, the full recording, the things that we said that we remember didn't happen for like another minute and a half. It's very strange. I don't know exactly what happened there, but yeah, our memories don't match what the recording has on it.
Now we've had that happen in the Florida swamp. We heard Chris Connor heard something, and we heard, and Betty and myself, his sister, heard a knock, and he heard something totally different, but the recorders picked up a knock and Chris didn't hear it. So
yeah, weird, huh?
yeah, what's going on? We had a request. I'm going to play it one more time. We had a request to play it.
Did you hear that? What was
What
that?
was that? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
What was that?
All right, we are going to open up questions here pretty soon because we're already on an hour. Can you imagine that? Just
Really? Already?
like blink of an eye. And that's why I said we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg here. And I'd love to have you back again. That's for sure.
I'd love to come back. I have so much more to share.
I know. You didn't even get to the new stuff.
I know we're still working on the old stuff.
I know. You want to tell something that's happened recently before we take questions?
Let's see. Oh, I wish I'd have sent you a picture of it. Well, we were at our May camp out just above camp. We had noticed that there was like this rock with a Sasquatch face beside the road with 2 peeled Y sticks next to it. And, we all stopped and looked at that and took pictures. And it's like, wow, that just is really cool. But what does it mean? We stood there looking at it, it's like face YY. What does this mean? And finally, after about 2 weeks, and one day it clicked. It's a Sasquatch Ys. You take those Ys, and you put them together, so you got Ys and the Sasquatch face, which even has a cone on the rock. Sasquatch Ys, and they are. It was a message. They are very smart.
Yeah, they are very smart. We found a structure that ended up being a compass. And we found it, and when we were putting the compass on, it was magnetic north at the cross. We walked up on it one morning, and the sun was coming up. And I told Larry, I said, Larry, you got to bring the compass next time we come up here and put that on there because it's due east. I mean, the sun was coming up right in between as we come up the hill. And
wow.
Sure as heck, we put it right on there. And magnetic north, and we get 2 knocks in back of us, boom, boom. They letting us know they're watching us, right?
Yeah.
We come back, guess what? It's on the ground. They took the X on the ground now is still magnetic north, though. They just laid it down. So they still have their marker, but it looked like they destroyed it.
Wow.
Very smart.
Oh, that's cool. They are very smart. They're on top of things. They're one step ahead of us always.
And I couldn't find that Apple picture, but when I do, I'm going to send it to you. I do have.
Okay, cool.
I couldn't find it. So we're going to open up some questions here. If you guys want all capital letters, please. And we'll take a couple questions. So thank you so much. I had a great time. Learned a lot. Coincidence is thrown out the door in my book now because I've talked to other people that have the same thing going on, that gifting, and we'll talk about that before you leave the show tonight. And we got our first question here from Miss Diane Fowler. So do you think they know our alphabet, or that's just a cryptic message?
They know. They have full understanding of the things that we understand, that we know how to communicate and all that. They're pretty smart. They've seen a lot of stuff out in the woods, and people leave books, and they look through our windows, they see our TVs, they observe us, they know how we talk, they know our language. I think depending on where you are, they know whatever language is in that area, whether it's in Asia or Europe or here, they know. They got it.
Yeah. Do you think that they're here all the time, or do they come and go?
I think that's it depends on the place. Here I think they're here all the time, but it's a relatively moderate climate here. They right here where I'm at is about where the snow level where the snow will stick year round, but below here it'll melt off. So they don't really have to go very far to be able to continue to hunt and fish and forage. And I can't speak for other places. A lot of other people think that they migrate and go from one place to another. But in this valley here where I am, they're here year round.
No. Oh, well, that's I'm talking between worlds. I'm talking spirit.
I think I think they're just kind of floating in between. I think that they have one foot here, and they can just take a step and be where they go. They can just go in and out as they please, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, this is only IMO, and you have already stated that tonight. We can only give our opinions.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Just speculating.
Yep. But it's fun.
It is.
Question from Steven Truth Seeker. Has Barb seen any orbs?
I have, yes. Before I realized the Sasquatch were here, I was, kind of into ghosts. And several times out here, I'd just go out walking around at night. And about 15 years ago, just right out here on the corner, 2 nights in a row, there were these little yellow orbs that were just kind of bouncing around in the weeds. And back then I thought of them as, oh, well, those must be like the spirits of squirrels that passed on or something like that. And then when I was ghost hunting up at our local tavern, I saw orbs up there. And I've seen orbs when we go to the Blues. One night there was, I think 4 or 5 of us sitting around the fire deep in conversation. And there was a stick break, which got our attention. And then there was another stick break that made us turn around and look just in time to see this probably beach ball sized big white orb floating slowly through the sky. And it just paused in the tops of some of the trees that were there beside camp. And it was there for, close to a minute. And we, long enough for us to speculate on what's it doing. Is it hiding from us or peeking? Because, we could still tell it was there. And then it just continued on out and went and was gone. And that was probably the coolest orb I've ever seen. But we've had other ones that have gone through camp a few times, here and there. You'll see little red ones that'll just shoot through. Or our May camp out, I saw twice a grapefruit-sized ball of light just flashed on and off. And I've seen the grapefruit-sized ball of light flash on and off out here too. And sparkles and mists, and there's a lot of weird lights that go on, not just the orbs, but yeah, I've seen them.
Okay, we got a question from your neighbor. Has Barb seen a portal?
Oh, hey Tom. As a matter of fact, I have. So that was a part of a larger event up at our Greenwater camp out here in May a few years ago. My friend Heidi and I had been catching up. We'd been friends for 30 years, but I hadn't really talked to her in a long time. And hey, stop that. Her tent was just right across this big campsite where it was kind of down at the end of the road behind the group area. So, and that's when Goldie here was like 7 weeks old. And we just been visiting, for a couple hours, and we were in her tent, and Goldie woke up and it's like, okay, puppy's got to pee. Oh, it's 2:30, time to go to bed anyway. So I step out of her tent, Goldie goes pee. I cross over to my tent, and I go back behind my car and I squat down. I had to go pee too. And I'm thinking to myself, I'll bet they're watching me right now. But, so then I go into my tent. It's late. I just go straight into my sleeping bag. Goldie goes right down into the foot of it. So she's down in there. I reach over, I hit the lantern, turn the light off. And almost instantly, the whole front of my tent is illuminated with this extremely bright white light. And it's highlighting the outline of an upright figure who's standing right in front of my tent. And I'm thinking, I knew they were watching me pee. I just knew it. They were right there the whole time. And so this individual, he's I mean, when we did the recreation, we literally had to put somebody inches from the tent wall to make the outline, the shadow, as crisp and clear as it was. And then the light seemed to like rise up and the figure disappeared, but then it was like, then I'm seeing shadows like this and I'm thinking hand, but then it clicked. Okay, no, the light had gone up into the trees and it's now shining down through the tree limbs. Okay, well then it shifted again and it went down, just like it became like this very dim light down in the lower right corner of my tent. And at that point I'm laying there and just in the air over my head, this portal opens up, just open and close, just open and close. And it was just a view into like somebody's living room with a brick fireplace and 2 brown couches on either side. And it was a dimly lit room, and the brick fireplace, I don't know if it was a different time or something, because it was very rustic. It wasn't a nice fireplace. It was very rough. And I didn't see like any lamps or decorative things on the mantle or anything like that you'd expect to see in a modern home. So I don't know if maybe it was just a view into another time or something. And I think maybe they just did it so that I could see that they could do that, that this is, hey, here's something else we can do. But it just opened and closed just right there above me. And that was followed by the mist. There was just this silvery mist in the top of my tent that just morphed into these different faces while I was laying there. And eventually I just fell asleep laying there watching this mist changing shape and making different faces. So that was that.
That's pretty wild. And
It was pretty cool.
yeah, she's got pictures and stuff to back up the story that you could go along with, but I don't have mine here for some reason. I don't know where they are, but when you come back, we will revisit.
Okay.
That episode. Here's a member of Discover Sasquatch team, Michael Nelson Jr. He asks, "Do you believe in any other cryptids?"
Well, I don't really think much about any other cryptids, but as far as I'm concerned, our world is so diverse. I mean, just look around you. There are so many things everywhere you look. It's just life everywhere. So why wouldn't whatever is on the other side of the veil be just as diverse? I don't know what's there and what it requires to be able to cross over and come into our world. But, if there's something else that has that ability, I'm sure that it would. There's got to be more there than just Sasquatch.
All right. No, you had a video I was checked out on your channel of something ducking behind a root ball, and it looked to me when you blew it up, it looked like it had a dog head on it to me.
It did. We've had dogman reports from up here. Well, I'm not going to say that they are dogmen. I'm just going to say we've had reports of Sasquatch with dog type faces,
right?
And you can take it from there. I know that there's other places where people report dogmen as being, like werewolves that are big and scary and all that. And I don't really know anything about that. All I know is that whatever I have out here isn't scary and it's not mean. And they're, I don't really see much difference. A face is a face. If you're going to look like an ape, that you look like an ape. If you're going to have a dog face, you're going to have a dog face. But you're still an individual that's upright and walking around and functioning with these extra abilities, and you're not hurting anybody as far as I know. So I don't know what they are other than a different kind of Sasquatch.
I've seen Sasquatch move as quick as that head moved, like in a blink of an eye, it was gone. I've seen that myself, and they're incredibly fast.
Yep.
All right, we're going to take a couple more questions. I think Goldie has to get outside and visit the little girl's room. So
she's getting bored with this.
Yeah, I know. I'm not very exciting, Goldie. Pack, or I hope I said that right, Pack. Do you think the orbs could be the Sasquatch?
I think so, but, that's just based on, I know that they go hand in hand. And I listen to, like Arla, I listen to the things that she teaches. And according to her, the orbs are a way that they travel, you know, that they can go into just energy form and go from one place to another by using that. But I don't know that all orbs are Sasquatch. You know, I can only speculate on that. The only thing I know for a fact is that where the Sasquatch are, the orbs are.
Yep. I agree with you. You can't tell until you see one turn into one. You can't really comment on it, but they
Yeah.
they do go together.
Yep.
I think that's about it. That's going to be about it on the questions. I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know it's early out there, and I appreciate it, and I can't wait to have you back again and to learn more. I've been watching the woods.
Forward to it.
I've been watching the woods and back here because we've had things happen on the show before. I've had a guest where the house got slapped. And on one interview, it was a howling going on the whole interview. You would hear it.
Oh, that's cool. That's why I was thinking, you know, it's kind of gloomy today and my cabin's a little dark in there. And it was like, you know, you guys get to see what's going on behind me here. Maybe somebody will make an appearance.
I've been watching. I've been watching, but nothing I've seen. I only got one anyway. So yes, I want to thank anybody. I'm still giving away that Scott Carpenter book. He's got a signed copy here. So if you guys are interested in running tonight, Barb, you got a magic word you want to tell everybody to put in the comment section to try and win the book?
A magic word?
Yeah. Pick a word. All right. Just
respect,
please.
Love, any of those will work.
There you go. Please respect love in the comments. You know, from the last video, it was swimming pool. Now it's please. Yeah, whatever. Just be nice. How's that?
That works. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah. Whoa. That happened the last time I was on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, that happened the last time to me. I don't know.
Yeah?
I hit something. But all right. Well, thank you so much. We want to wait backstage for a couple seconds and I'll see you. I just want to say goodbye to everybody and wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been awesome. I look forward to doing it again.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Barb Shupe.
Bye.
All right. What a show. I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat room. You guys kept it cool, and I appreciate that. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that shows up every week. I appreciate everybody, and everybody who works on the sidelines for us. I want to tell everybody to take a look into Chris and the Trail to Bigfoot. He's back out on the scene. Take a look at his videos. Spencer and Missy from Woodwalkers. They're another great talk show on Sundays. Mark and Becca at Cedar Creek Bottoms Farm Life. My buddy Al and Brian and, you know, everybody that works hard for me, all my moderators, Boots on the Ground, Blue Eyed Northern, BF Bud, Michael Nelson Jr., Shayna. Oh, yeah, Michael and Shayna are 20 weeks pregnant now, so that's exciting news. We're hopefully going out on Saturday. Larry is actually joining us on Saturday, which doesn't happen very often anymore. So, yeah, thank you all for showing up. Don't forget to leave a comment, nice comment, to try and win that book. And I will combine the two last shows, and we'll have the drawing next week. In 2 weeks, we have the creator of Sasquatch Odyssey. Now you guys are gonna make me remember his name, and I'm not gonna be able to remember his name. And I'm sorry about that, but not the top of my head right now. But he's our guest in 2 weeks. Next week is he'll be our guest, and then I'm back on call. So I'm blabbing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Michael Shane Crisp. Bam. There you go. I knew I remember it. All right, everybody. So thank you. Thank you. And as you know, we end the show, as always, what Larry says, get in the woods, people.